Today, many of us live lives that are filled with subtle, chronic stress. A lot of that stress comes from devices with screens. Well, today I'm going to tell you about a little device that I found with a screen that can actually help you to relax. I'm Charlie Hudson, and you are watching Reanderthal. This little guy is called the stress eraser, and it's a biofeedback device. What that means is that it uses a sensor to measure something that's going on inside your body, in this case, heart rate variability, and specifically the interval in between your heartbeats. And that is a good indicator of the state of your nervous system. Now, this device came on my radar a few years ago, and at the time I was excited about it, but I think it was like a couple $100s or something like that. It was really outside the range of what I felt I could spend on a curiosity. Well, time passes and things become available on eBay, and I nabbed this guy for about $75, I think. And it's been quite interesting. I have some good things and some frustrating things to say about it. We'll start with the good. This little guy really does help me to relax. I use it, at this point, I use it just about every night. For about 40 breath cycles. They recommend using it for, I believe, around 100 cycles, but I find I really have trouble keeping my eyes open past around 40, and that's a great thing. And using the device, I have found that I've become more aware of some of the tension that I hold in my abdomen that I can let go. And by using that feedback in the device, I can see what ways of breathing actually concretely help me to relax. And I can see that in real time. And to a certain extent, I can take those insights and relax even when I'm not using the device. But it really is, even now, even after more than a year of use, it really is still helpful to have those cues on the screen. It really does add something, even when you're sort of more familiar with what's going on in your body. It really helps to have it externalized and quantified right there in front of you. So for that alone, the price has been well worth it. Okay, now I'm going to show you some footage of the stress eraser in action. First it goes through a little warm-up. And now what you're looking at is my heart rate variability mapped out when I'm not following the program, just breathing as I would normally. And now we're watching as I'm beginning to pay attention to the feedback on screen and follow the program. The little triangles that you see on top are cues for me to breathe out, and the little columns of squares, either 1, 2, or 3 squares down below, are the indicators of how good my previous breath cycle was, 1 being the worst and 3 being the best. The goal you're aiming for is a smooth sine wave, and one of the things that I try to do is to get the peaks as high as possible and the troughs as low as possible. And it's really interesting to see what things I do actually affect this feedback on screen. I found that to get the troughs lower, I really have to find all of the tension in my core and just let go of it. And the more places that I can find tension and loosen myself, the lower that trough goes. And then for getting the peaks higher, it's a sort of smooth, steady breath in. As soon as you sort of even think about breathing out or finishing your inhale, that little triangle is going to appear. So it has to be a sort of smooth, steady inhalation. As you begin to figure out what sorts of things inside your body correlate with what you're seeing on screen, you can really start to feel the difference. Now, one of the problems that I have with this device is that it's a little bit finicky. First of all, I'm not going to be able to show you how it works right now because the room is too cold. I turned off my heater to cut down on the noise, and the temperature of the room has fallen, and my hands are too cold. There's not enough blood flowing through my fingers for it to measure my heart rate. Now, that's not a fault of the device makers. That's a fact of biology. But it is a little bit annoying, especially if you want to use it before bed and you like to sleep in a somewhat cold room. So what I've found I have to do is stick my hand in my armpit for a few minutes before using the device. Another issue is that sunlight causes problems. I use the stress eraser mostly at night, in part because it really helps me to fall asleep, but also because it's a pain in the neck to use out in the sun. One of the things that I love to do in the summer, I'm not going to do it out in the snow in March, but in the summer I love to lie out in the sun and soak up some vitamin D and cholesterol sulfate. And I'd love to multitask and help to relax myself as well. But unfortunately, sunlight screws with the sensor, and so it's difficult to use in the sun. Now, you can sort of roll up your sleeve and cover most of it, and if you've got a thick enough shirt, that works okay. But of course, I don't want to wear a long sleeve shirt when I'm sunbathing. And you could probably wrap a towel around your hand or something, but it's not the easiest thing to use in the sun. My final nitpicks with the device have to do with the backlight and the battery life. Now, it's pretty cool that they've included a backlight, because this is a device you're often going to be using at night in bed. But the backlight, first of all, is blue. Now, this is super nitpicky, but I really do everything I can to avoid blue lights at night for circadian reasons, and it really wouldn't kill them to include a red backlight or an orange backlight instead. It's not a lot of light. It's, I'm sure, not a big deal, but it really wouldn't kill them, and I'd like to see something warmer. The real issue, though, is that this backlight just sucks power. Now, that's not a problem if you're using disposable batteries. But I like to use rechargeable batteries, and when you're using these rechargeable batteries and you're using the backlight, the batteries last one evening if you're lucky. Sometimes it doesn't even last as long as you'd like in that one evening. And I don't want to switch to disposable batteries, which means that rather than use the backlight, what I normally do is use a headlamp. And that's an inelegant workaround. Now, rechargeable batteries have the capacity that they have, and the manufacturers of the stress eraser have no control over that. And I assume that the device is about as efficient as it's going to get. But one thing the manufacturers could do would be to add some way to plug the device in and avoid the battery issue completely. So that would be the number one thing on my stress eraser wish list, some way to plug it in. Number two would be a backlight that was a warmer color like orange or red. And finally, I'd like to see a light blocking solution that was more elegant than wrapping a bunch of cloth around your hand. But those criticisms aside, this is a really cool little device, and it provides some really powerful insights into processes going on inside your body that would be difficult to be aware of without that external representation. If relaxation is important to you, if it's something you're trying to work on, I would give a long, hard look at something like the stress eraser. It has provided me some really powerful insights that I don't think I would have gotten really any other way. It's not a perfect device, but I think it's been well worth the $75 that I spent on eBay. It's a Neolithic solution to a Neolithic problem. Check it out. Blah, 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 blah.